Recording. I got it. I got this. All right, we ready?
I believe in you.
Episode 1 of Ticket Snubs. Hello, everybody. I'm joined here today
Hello.
by John, Cam, Rayma, and
Hey.
Andres. All right, today our first debate is Midsommar, presented by me, and Evil Dead 2, presented by John. Now, how these debates are going to work, we're going to be talking about these movies in 5 different sections. First section, plot and characters. Second, acting. Third, technical. 4, a custom section, depending on what movies we're discussing. Today, it's going to be horror. And 5th is the lasting impact that these movies have. Now, of course, these are all just our opinions, but we are arguing about our favorite movies, so it is going to get a little emotional.
I'm gonna cry.
Since John and I will be debating, our judges/moderators for today will be Cam, Rayma, and Andres.
I can judge things.
So can I.
Me too.
All right, so with that, I think we're ready to just jump right into it.
Round 1. Okay.
So, plot and characters.
We're gonna start off with a random generator.
So,
John.
odd number, PJ. Oh,
John.
okay, we're just doing that.
John.
Okay, I guess this is John.
John, go.
All right. Okay, so I'm starting off. Okay. Let's see. So if we're talking about plot first, you have to look. I mean, it is a sequel itself, Evil Dead 2. So you need to judge how well it corresponds with its original and how much it builds upon the story and such elements like that. And I think it does it absolutely perfectly. And it is the first glimpse that defines Ash Williams as the character that we know him as nowadays, the horror icon that he's become. Evil Dead 2 gives Ash an excuse to become the narcissistic kind of jerk he is in the third movie and the television series, because whereas the first one's more just a straight horror film about people in a cabin in the woods being murdered by deadites, and it's great, Evil Dead 2 is more about the psychological effect that it has on Ash Williams and the fact that now another group of people are coming into his cabin and he can do nothing but watch them die, and he's like the lone survivor, really messes with his head. So it gives him the excuse to become that he eventually becomes. Who else we got? We got the architect's daughter, and her husband. What I like most about the architect's daughter is you think throughout the movie she's going to become the love interest of the film, especially towards the end when it's just her and Ash left. And she defeats the Deadites with him and everything, and they're even holding each other, about to kiss, it's all romantic and everything, and then she just gets stabbed by the Kandarian dagger and dies. And that's something that even the remake does excellent. There is no main character in the remake, it's just, oh, everyone's gonna die. Like, I like that. You can't replace Ash Williams. He is an icon. His character has become a staple of the horror industry.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
That's very true, and I never thought of that until you said it just now, so thank you for that.
No problem.
That gave me some insight.
Yay.
Continue.
Okay. So, yeah, you can't replace Ash Williams. We got the hillbilly and his daughter or wife. I still can't really tell after watching this movie for like 80,000 times.
Like his girlfriend. I thought that was just his girlfriend.
Yeah, I thought it was his girlfriend too.
Alright, so let's say it's his girlfriend. She's really hot anyway. He's Mr. Hillbilly Boy. I actually know a lot of people that think his character arc is very out of left field when he kind of turns on everybody. But if your girlfriend gets taken out to go rape by trees in the woods,
Well,
you're not gonna make sure you do everything in your power to go get her back. So I understand his, I don't want to say reversal, but like, his character change, and I like it. I like it a lot. I think his girlfriend's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say about the characters there. There's really not much to say otherwise,
I'm gonna let PJ start his, and then I have a couple questions for plot and characters. So PJ, start.
Great start, John. I honestly, I didn't think about Evil Dead 2 in that light. Was it because I watched it at 1:30 a.m.? Possibly.
hey, you're admitting your faults, okay?
I'm admitting, yeah. That movie did make me feel like I was on drugs. I had no clue what was going on.
Good. And Sam Raimi has said in an interview, and I don't mean to interrupt, sorry, but many times he states that the worst crime you could commit as a filmmaker is making a boring picture.
A boring picture.
So he will do anything in his power to make a movie entertaining, and whether you like it or not is up to you. But it is perfect for what it is, in my opinion. But go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Let's give PJ the time.
I think, in my opinion, Midsommar, it's just that, whereas, as John just said, Sam Raimi went about this movie making entertaining. Ari Aster made this movie to actually tell a story with an actual plot. We get into the characters, Danny and Christian. Obviously, this movie is more of a breakup movie than a horror movie, where everything around them is just symbolism of their falling apart, their deteriorating relationship, and even Danny's just mental stability.
Yeah.
With the introduction of like drugs under the influence, could be seen as an allegory for dependence. Who is there? I don't like calling him Christian. I always call him Walmart Chris Pratt because he looks like a Walmart Chris
Jack
Pratt.
Rayner,
That's true.
Oh yeah, Jack Rayner. Yeah,
the Irishman.
he was in The Irishman.
No, he's Irish.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, and they call him Lucky Charms in Transformers 4.
Oh, I wish I
Yeah,
didn't know
no.
that he was in Transformers 4.
He is.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Anyways.
I really do feel like in terms of like a plot, Evil Dead 2, I appreciate that it's closed. It's closed off. It's in the cabin. You kind of know what's going on. Basic setup, you know. I haven't seen the first Evil Dead or the third one, so I can't really say much about it. I was only given that like 10-minute exposition that
Well-
kind of covered it. I
Okay,
guess.
go ahead.
But
All right, go ahead. I'll explain that after.
yeah, but I mean, Midsommar in the case of just comparing Midsommar to Evil Dead 2, it's definitely way more of an open and shut story. If you know, because I mean, I know Evil Dead 2 is supposed to be a sequel, but Midsommar is a story. Like it's.
Well, you're again dealing with two very different pieces of filmmaking there. When you're doing a sequel that's also intended to have yet another one, you can't really close out the story.
Oh
in any
yeah.
solidified manner.
I mean, it's just with Evil Dead 2, even I really like one of the reasons I gave Evil Dead a 6 out of 10 because I enjoyed some aspects of it, but I did not understand what was going on. I just knew they had to say Latin to get the demons away, and then he was in the Middle Ages. I was like, okay. And then it ended. I was like, okay, but sure.
Well,
I guess
they state in the movie in the missing pages of the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, which is the most satisfying thing ever to say, that there is a man who went to medieval times, and defeated the demons and is the savior of our universe, apparently. And they have the picture in the book, and that's why the movie ends like that. The demons transport him back to hopefully try to defeat him this time, because
Yeah.
he's the only one that can stop him.
Yeah.
Stop them. Yeah.
Amen.
All right.
I
for a
missed
question for
that.
this-
Oh wait, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
The first 10 minutes of Evil Dead 2, don't pay attention to it. Pretend it does not exist. The
I
movie
was
the movie
explicitly told
technically
to watch the
starts-
first 10 minutes of it.
No. Okay, because you didn't watch the first one. The first one and the first 10 minutes of Evil Dead 2 are completely different things. And that's because they did not own the rights to their movie when it came out. So the second Evil Dead, due to studio interference, they had to remake the first Evil Dead in the first 10 minutes of Evil Dead 2. So you need to start the movie once Ash gets flown away by the demon into the tree and becomes Demon Ash. That's when the movie starts, because the first one ends with all his friends dying, Ash being the only one left. He thinks he defeated the demons once and for all, and then the excellent camera work starts once more, and the demon comes flying through the house and into Ash's face, and it just ends, and you don't know what happens there. In the sequel, you find out what happens. The first 10 minutes is just a rehash of the first movie, done by a studio that didn't own the rights to the first one, so they had to do that so people wouldn't be confused when this movie started with Ash flying into a tree. it's,
If you're being honest, and I'm such a big Evil Dead fan, I did not know that. So interesting.
But like,
I love Evil Dead. It's my favorite film trilogy. I love it.
I feel like
So
that's a
let me-
detriment to the film itself, where
Yes, it is, but what studio interference? What are you going to do about it?
I know
If
studio
you
interference.
don't own the rights to your own creative vision, and something has to be put in there, and you have no control over it, I don't think it's necessarily detrimental to the art you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
I'm gonna go into a question specifically for Midsommar, just because wow, John. For PJ, since John really found himself speaking more about the characters and the plot, I'm gonna go into the characters for Midsommar. In specific, in your own words, how do you think that Christian resists against Danny and vice versa in Midsommar?
Oh, well, it's the struggle that every failing relationship sees, where one side is losing interest, where the other one is only gaining dependence. It's the whole idea of dependence, which I think makes
That's true.
Midsommar just like a cinematic masterpiece is that there's just so many layers of this movie just like level on top of each other for this central message of dependence that Ari Aster, of course, was trying to get across. Say he made this movie when he was going through that like breakup or something. But Christian is just an infuriating character. But he's
a
like,
jerk.
it's subtly infuriating. I mean, it's not even subtle, really, but it's more of
I
a.
saw Midsommar the first time with my friend and it ended, and he was like, "They killed my man Christian. He did nothing wrong."
Oh my
What
god.
do you mean?
What?
No.
Wee woo, wee woo.
Yeah, that's a red flag for your friend.
All right. So.
Also spoilers, by the way, guys.
Oh yeah, we never put a spoiler
spoiler
warning.
territory.
Spoiler alert.
All right. So I think we pretty much mastered the whole discussion. Well, obviously we can go on for like centuries about the plot and characters for both movies and the impact it has, but I think we're gonna slowly move into acting.
Mhm.
So since we started with John first, I'm gonna let PJ start first. Describe the way that the portrayal for the entire movie was really impacted by the acting of all the actors and actresses.
All right, the acting. Well, for a movie like Midsommar, where you have like this cultish environment, you're going to need the right people to play a cult. And
Yeah.
I would say that the village itself is a character.
No,
Like
yeah,
the buildings,
definitely.
the environment, and it's all a character. The paintings themselves do a lot for the story. Just the creepy kind of stillness of everything. I think of the red-haired girl that takes the resting bitch face guy off. I can't remember his name. I can't remember anyone's name from this
Maha,
movie.
are you talking about Maha, the one that is impregnated by Christian?
Yes, her. She's
Okay.
like
You
she
scared me.
everyone is so tranquil. Tranquil's the word I'm looking for. And that tranquility without fakeness just like absolutely contributes to the overarching slow burn eerie sense that this movie creates. That's like really one of a kind I have not seen in any other movies besides like Aster's other work.
One of the key scenes I would say would be the fact that Danny in the middle of, well, no, towards the end, she has this really, really big panic attack over everything. And you see everyone else in the cult joining her in her cries and her like screams.
Oh yes, that's my favorite scene.
That's a good
honestly.
scene.
In what way do you think that acting contributes to the story that the filmmakers are trying to say, like tell?
Again, it's the idea that the community is coming together for her. It's the idea that her dependence, or her complete relationship was just broken with Christian, right? And now this community is showing, look, you can depend on us. There's a new source of dependence for her.
Mhm.
It's just giving her a new outlet, and whether it's like healthy or not, she doesn't care. She just wants to express, and they all just express, and it's so it's just.
Right. Yeah.
Something else that I think is important to like ask is how do you feel that the portrayal of grief amongst the characters benefits the overall theme of the film?
Grief. Well, grief is absolutely a major part of the story. You think
But,
of
like how it's portrayed by the actors specifically.
how it's portrayed. I mean, specifically Danny, the
Mhm.
whole movie, like from the acid trip. I think of that one scene where not the acid trip, the mushrooms, where she goes and runs off. She's like, "I'm fine. Stop laughing at me." It's just the idea that like something so earth-shattering can literally like it shatters your earth. And that she wants to start from ground zero. And the movie literally gives her that opportunity to start at ground zero from this random village in the middle of Sweden or wherever they are.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut you there for Midsommar. And I mean, do Camry, Anders, do you have any more questions to ask PJ for Midsommar? Because I don't want to let you guys.
No,
I don't have any-
I asked all I wanted
Okay.
to ask.
So I'm gonna transition to for acting within Evil Dead 2. So
Yeah.
obviously Evil Dead 2 is one of like it's known to be such an influential impact the horror film industry. But you can tell that there's a lot of comedic aspects into Evil Dead 2. In what way do you think that the way that the actors and actresses incorporate the comedic aspect within their acting, how do you think that it does have an impact in the whole horror aspect of it? It's an aspect like
I think it's fantastic. Like Evil Dead, comparing Evil Dead to Midsommar super quick. Midsommar is a very down-to-earth, serious, character-driven story, whereas Evil Dead 2, while also being very character-driven, is campy. they're both completely different things. One's going for a very serious tone, the other one is just there to have as much fun as possible. The amount of screenshots I have of Ash Williams' face from Evil Dead 2 is insane because it's just perfectly
Oh yeah.
campy. It's great. The amount of range and facial expressions Bruce Campbell is capable of is incredible, and it's perfectly shown in Evil Dead 2. Even the other characters, they're there to be exaggerated versions of what the stereotype portrays them as. Like the hillbilly guy is kind of like the whole, I can't do a hillbilly accent, but he's got the whole hillbilly accent going on. They find him on the side of the road protecting a fallen bridge, and he's like, well, I'll carry your bags if you give me some money, blah blah blah, stuff like that. The campiness perfectly adds to the tone that it's going for and solidifies it as perfect in what it is. I think it's great.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. Like, there's not many characters in Evil Dead, this
There's
series,
4.
the trilogy. Yeah, there's not
Mhm.
much at all. So it does rely on the characters, even if they're not in it that much, but especially on Ash. So
Oh yeah. Like the
So-
scene where the whole laughing scene is one of the greatest scenes in movie history, in my opinion. I think it's fantastic, and it
Yeah.
perfectly shows what they were going for and the acting range of Bruce Campbell in those movies. It's
yeah,
fantastic.
that's a good
I love it.
scene.
Yeah,
So
he
do
goes
you
right
think-
from starting off super. He falls into the chair, super depressed after just getting attacked by a whole bunch of blood coming out of a wall, and he looks up and there's a deer laughing at him, and he automatically goes into a laughing spree. It's fantastic.
So
Mhm.
obviously we know that Midsommar is really, really good at, creating fear with whoever really watches it, whether it be just being terrified or just that uncomfortable, uneasy feeling that you get. But
Mhm.
I want to go back into the fact that you said that, they're really portraying these stereotypes in a very comedic way. Do you think that the comedic stereotypes enhanced by the character instills fear or horror onto its audience?
Yeah, I would say so, especially since usually in horror films, you picture the hillbilly character as usually the bad guy. Like, you look at Tucker and Dale versus Evil, that movie's a perfect representation of stereotypes in horror films. Like, whereas the hillbillies are usually the bad guys, they're good guys in that movie. Look at the hillbilly in this movie, when they pull up to him out by the bridge and he's like telling them they can't go this way, your first thought is, oh, he's gonna go take these people there, where's he gonna take them? They're going on a back road thing, wait, what's he gonna do to them? But then you realize he's just a good guy, and he's there to help. So you are uneasy when you first meet him. So that definitely adds to the horror aspect of it.
My question about like the horror aspect is, since it's a horror comedy, do you think Evil Dead 2 does a good job of mixing them together instead of like keeping it separate? And so like it's not disjointed. We're like, oh, this scene's scary, this scene's funny, but it's this one scene is both funny and scary.
In specific to that, obviously, like we're kind of going off topic. I think the actor's portrayal should really be talked about in that.
Yeah. Also, to add on to that question, do you think that the acting in Evil Dead 2 is more impressive because it's only really one central character and it's very make or break? Like if Bruce Campbell wasn't as good as he was, then the whole movie would fall apart.
Yeah, Bruce Campbell carries the film. Not only the film, but the trilogy. I mean, he's a central character. You're watching the psychological decline of a man who thought he was just a cool, pretty boy that was going to a cabin with a bunch of girls and gonna have fun. And now you're watching him be the savior of the universe, and he's not there to save anybody but himself. And that's evident in the third movie, especially, and the television series. He does not care about what happens to anybody else. He is a hero because the story is telling him to be. Otherwise, he would care less.
All right, so we're gonna go into more the technical aspect.
That
PJ,
What?
can you defend your case of horror?
Can I?
Or not horror, but like cinematography.
Oh my
and
God!
the way it-
Absolutely.
No, but like how
Evil
both the cinematography as well as the the digital effects surrounding like tripping scenes like benefits the movie.
Oh yeah,
It's
it's just an alteration of reality in the sense that you become confused
It's to
with
set the
reality
mood
itself.
for like the film.
Like I think of when she feels like she's becoming a part of nature. You're like, whoa. Or when everything's like kind of like wavy and breathing. But I would say comparing a movie like Midsommar and Evil Dead 2, I know obviously they're from two very different time periods. Evil Dead 2 came out 2000?
Heck
No.
no.
1987, bro.
1987.
Oh damn. Okay, my bad.
Good.
Well, for the
Wow.
sorry.
Sinful.
I am absolute. I don't know what came out in 2000. I just watched something. Oh,
The remake Evil Dead came out in 2013.
I
Yeah.
no. I watched Jackass last night. That came out in 2000.
Oh,
What?
quality
It
movies,
has anything to
dude.
do with anything. Like,
What movie
Sorry,
would be
but no,
like
but
Saw?
when you compare a movie like Midsommar versus a movie like Evil Dead 2, Evil Dead 2 does have its defining moments, obviously, but Midsommar just does so much with the cinematography. I think back to my all-time favorite scene in Midsommar has to be right after the party when they come back to their apartment. I can talk about this scene for like literally hours. When they come back to their apartment and you see Christian in the chair and Danny is standing next to the door asking, "You never
And
told
he's
me
in the
about a
mirror.
party." You know what scene I'm talking about? You guys know what scene I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
in the
he's in the
beginning.
mirror on the.
He's
in
in the
background,
mirror,
and she's,
and
yeah.
that whole scene where she is obviously larger in frame, she has control of the conversation, she's the one asking questions until she slips up. He stands up, the camera turns, they're on equal playing field now. The conversation, it's more of a back and forth until he reasserts himself. He starts making her apologize. She goes and sits down. He's the larger one in the scene. And I think if you can execute something like that, just a conversation just by the staging of a scene, like that's nuts.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
That's
That's
absolutely nuts. And
all
just
the
the dynamic
the-
movement and that it's all one take is something that, I mean, Evil Dead has its moments, like the whole stop motion, but it doesn't instill the same sense of like just dread of watching this deteriorating relationship that Midsommar does.
See, that's where I
Go
kind
off
of gotta
on.
disagree with you, though.
Really?
Go off.
Yeah.
Let's go into the technical aspect of Evil Dead. So
Yes.
John.
Yes.
I think Evil Dead has some of the best camera work in cinematic history.
Really?
Really?
From the perspective of the Deadites, especially the opening scene of, well, not opening scene because we discussed the first 10 minutes, maybe about, oh, is it 20 minutes in, when Ash is being chased through the house and even through the walls by a Deadite, and the camera is perfect the entire time. It just, the amount of planning that had to go into that is incredible. And there are behind the scenes of it. There are documentaries on Evil Dead 2 and even the first one and the third one, and those are also great.
It was a bicycle, right? Like they just
What
got
happened?
him on a bike.
Yeah,
Like,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's so much fun. Some of the shots in Evil Dead 2, I still can't even imagine how they did some of them. Like even through the documentary, some of them
Can you
are
give an
photo.
example? Like give an example of what you
I
think
gotta
was like
think.
such a great impact.
Oh, I got an example for you. Even if we talk about, they do this in the second one, but the scene where it's most prominent is in the first one. You guys know when it opens up and it's on the lake, and then it goes all the way through the forest, all the way to the window to the cabin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I still can't fathom how they, like, I know it has to be some kind of crane shot. Like, it starts over the water, right above it, then it goes over all these hills, around a whole bunch of trees, in the woods, and then all the way to the cabin. And, I mean, it's definitely a cut through the window. It's still just so impressive to me. And even especially the second one, there's so many times where I just question how they did stuff, and I love it. I think it's
Like
great.
the mirror scene, for instance, like with the two ashes.
Well, that's also really well done. But the documentary goes into that, how like the person in closest to the camera is not Ash, obviously, and then it's just
Yeah, it's like
Ash.
a Terminator
Oh yeah,
2
that makes, I mean that's
effect.
that's kind of
Again, it's extremely well done. It never once takes you out of the scene at all. And if we go into practical and visual effects, obviously 1987 versus 2019 are going to be completely different. I mean, they try to have a visual effect in Evil Dead 2 with the ghost of the dad. What's his job? Whatever, like
the archaeologist.
archaeologist kind of guy. Yeah, and like you see him, and it's just that really flat image of like a spooky
Yeah.
looking boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
But I mean,
yeah.
what else are you really gonna do there?
Yeah.
But the practical effects in Evil Dead 2 especially are incredible. It had such a bigger budget than the first one. It had $3.5 million was the budget for the second one. And thinking of Midsommar, which was a $9 million budget, and comparing it to Evil Dead 2, I think the bear being, with its intestines being cut out in Midsommar, doesn't look very good. And there are many effects in Evil Dead 2 where I'm like, that is fantastic. Almost to every effect. I can't think of one. And the scene where Ash is in the cellar and Helena, the mom, comes out and she transforms into a thing. I think that's one of the most disturbing scenes in cinematic history. I think it's absolutely fantastically done. The practical effects are incredible. I can't think of anything that's wrong from a technical standpoint of Evil Dead 2, minus continuity errors. I mean, there's plenty of them, but that kind of adds to the charm of the campiness of the movie. Like, one moment, Ash's hair will be in a different angle. It's fun, though. I like it. People in the background will be in completely different spots, but it's fun.
Can
but like
I
never mind.
to the
The,
technical for Evil Dead 2. Okay, the camera work, the shaky cameras and stuff, and how it chases after them, that honestly terrifies me. I think it's great.
It's so good.
It scares me. That's all I gotta say.
No, I mean, yeah, that definitely, the shaky camera, it fits the tone of the movie. But Midsommar is a slow burn. Evil Dead 2 is just a bow, 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 bow. We
Yeah,
can all agree
completely
on that.
different.
But Midsommar just, I get what you're saying about the bear. I looked it up. Evil Dead 2 being 3.5 million, adjusted for inflation, that's about 7.5 million. So 7.5 million and 9 million are about equal.
I mean, there's a big discrepancy there. Like, 2 million is kind of a lot of money.
Well,
but,
yeah, but then
I
you
think-
also
I
have to
think-
account for greater marketing in the modern day.
I mean,
Yeah,
marketing
but
usually isn't
but
factoring
also
into production budget.
Technology
Is it
just
not?
wasn't that advanced. Like cinematography just wasn't that.
Yeah, like imagine Midsommar being made in 1987. It wouldn't have been. You wouldn't have been able to create the environments that are in that movie in the background. Midsommar relies so much more on visuals than it does practicals, and it's not bad at all.
Most of it's invisible for me, at least. Like, if I remember correctly from watching it, like I didn't really notice much of the visual effects because I know most of it was like green screen replacements, but like it was very well
Mm.
done.
And then,
But,
And practical effects to me are scarier than visual effects because when I see a visual effect that's noticeably a visual effect, it's gonna stand out in my head. But a practical effect always has that sense of realism to it. Like look at the first Evil Dead. The pencil in the ankle scene is
Oh
incredible.
God, yeah.
And it's super disturbing. And the fact that it tops it by when she takes out the pencil, the tip is broken off,
Mm-hmm.
is disgusting.
Well.
And that
Brandon,
would've-
We're not talking about the first one. We're talking about.
Well,
We're talking
yeah,
about Evil Dead
but I'm
2.
just trying to prove that the practicals add to the horror of Evil Dead, in my opinion.
But like, never mind the quality of the effects because they're made like 32 years apart, so like, there's a big discrepancy there. But like, how the effects bolster the point that the film was going for.
I mean, it kind of comes back to the plot as well, where Evil Dead 2 it's a campy horror film where Midsommar has a clear message it is making along with being this absolutely just bone-chilling, slow burn horror. I feel like there's more substance to Midsommar.
Yeah, but sometimes your film doesn't need to be anything more than.
It doesn't
be fun.
need to be, but in the case of Midsommar, where it can near perfectly execute it, it adds to it quite a bit.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with you there. It's just there is no deeper meaning to Evil Dead 2. It's just Evil Dead 2, and I think it's perfect for what it is.
All right. So we're slowly going into our custom category. So obviously we can't go without talking about the horror aspect of both. Whoever wants to start first, I don't have any specific question because horror. So go.
What do you predict that it'll do for
I-
the future?
I mean, I would hope.
In specific about horror, personally, when I saw it, it was really, really different, and I think in comparison to watching Evil Dead 2 and Midsommar, I personally related so much to, again, like, because Andres and PJ warned me not to watch it because it's so much.
Multiple times.
We did, yeah.
Multiple
Yeah.
times, mostly because of what the entire plot entails. It's just something
It's
that
it's relatable. You can relate to it.
It's bone chilling because of how much I have been in Danny's exact position.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, at that point, explain the significance of this different sense of horror.
It's what I've been mentioning. The idea of the slow burn in this modern day kind of like if Evil Dead 2 set the idea for horror movies today, then we need a Midsommar to change that because horror movies today are just not good. You look at like Fantasy Island, Truth or Dare,
Yeah.
anything
Blumhouse,
produced by
literally anything
Blumhouse
Blumhouse.
exclusively it's all just like jump scare cash grabs, which somehow like the lineage could be traced back to Evil Dead 2, I guess. But
Yeah.
Midsommar
I
is
mean,
just
it goes farther back than that. But,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it definitely would, but Evil
Well-
Dead 2 definitely helped contribute to the scary Whereas Midsommar and to the same extent, like Hereditary and I'd even say The Witch, somewhat, they all are slow burns leading up to one major, just kind of what is happening.
Yeah, and for Evil Dead, there weren't many jump scares in the Evil Dead movies.
I mean, not really
The-
jump scares,
the
but more of like
Midsommar scene where
I-
they smash the heads.
Yeah, that's oh my
Oh.
god.
Wait, which
Wait,
one?
which scene?
In Midsommar, when
Midsommar.
the old
Yes,
people jump
when
off.
they finally reach.
Oh yeah.
And the man, he doesn't make it. He's still
The
alive.
big boy
so
mallet
the
coming out?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting them
smashed
to
his
show it.
head.
Like that's like
That's a very good practical effect.
oh yeah, I was
Maybe
gonna mention that.
That's
But
true.
the idea of having more slow burn plot driven horror movies is what we
Yeah.
need right now. It's refreshing.
I
You
like
gotta
those.
think of the audience, PJ. Though. Like,
I know you gotta
I'm all
think of
with
the-
you for that.
You gotta
but-
think of the
but-
audience, obviously. Like it's
Yes,
not gonna it's not gonna
but
happen.
The reason Jason Blum is such a successful businessman is because he makes dumb Blumhouse movies that he could care less about for a super small budget that he'll make back opening weekend because he targets them specifically for teens and preteens that want to go see a stupid horror movie with their friends late at night.
Yeah,
That's
There
true.
is no artistic craft there.
absolutely.
And most people, they're not going to want to sit through The Lighthouse and think about it. And what does this mean? What does that mean? Oh gosh, I am very confused. This is super ambiguous. They're going to want immediate satisfaction.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if that comes in the form of a dumb jump scare that'll make you laugh with your friends for 5 seconds.
But I mean, I've been able to enjoy watching like Hereditary with groups just the same as I've been able to enjoy watching Saw. But even more than Saw. The Saw oh my god, I cannot watch a single
But there's still a level of care in Saw, especially the first one.
no, the
Towards
first
the
two.
end, they
The
get
first
really
two are
stupid,
amazing
but-
movies. I'd argue that the second movie is actually a genuinely like good film. But as
Uh-huh.
you get on,
John.
it's just like I
John,
can't.
I'm gonna go over to you for a quick second. Obviously, Evil Dead 2 has such an impact in the horror industry. Do you think that it's going to always live up to its reputation and just always be that one film that had its impact?
Yeah, Evil Dead 1 created most of the horror cliches you see nowadays that everybody complains about. It created the Cabin in the Woods cliche. It created the Book of the Dead cliche. All of that stuff originates from the first Evil Dead, and Evil Dead 2 just solidifies it as a now horror cliche. I think it's great. I don't know. It's just the best. I've seen Evil Dead 2 especially so many times, and it does not disappoint once. I like it. I like it the same as I liked it the first time I saw it every time.
Okay, so what about a what if scenario? What if Evil Dead 2 were to come out today? How do you think audiences would react to it? Do you think it would actually make money?
That's a good question.
I think if I would think from my perspective at least, if Evil Dead 2 like would you mean the whole series?
No,
Because-
say Evil Dead came out last year and then Evil Dead 2 comes out today.
And nothing changed, like no switch to visual effects over practical or anything. It's just the same movie.
Yeah, let's just say that.
I think it would be not super appreciated by audiences, but by critics 100%, especially with this reliance. If it was new, it would be like, oh, reliance on practical effects. That's a check. And it's a campy horror movie. That's a throwback to the 80s and the 90s. Blah blah blah. That's a check. But like, I don't know. I don't feel like people would really appreciate it for what it is nowadays. Because I think part of the appreciation for Evil Dead 2 is because of what it created for the genre. But it's also just a solid movie.
All right. Any closing statements for Midsommar? Moderators, we can obviously comment, but I'm gonna stay pretty far away from it because I've been asking questions and stuff. So I'm gonna let Andres and Cam. You guys can also put your input.
I have no questions, but I think both made very compelling arguments and took a good stand on their movies.
I talked too much.
No,
John,
I
the
agree
point of
definitely
this
with
is
what
to
Cam
talk.
said. Despite my own personal biases, because I do think one film is better than the other one. I do think that if I had never seen these films and you two were both recommending them to me, I think I would watch both of them because
Yeah,
you
I'd be
both made very good points about
I'd be
it.
curious.
So moderators, who wins this debate? And
Let's just go like section by section, okay? So plot
Okay,
and
so
characters.
Characters. Cam, do you want to go first?
No.
I'll go first.
I definitely think in that aspect, I would definitely give it to John just because the way he was able to really go off on the dynamic of the characters and the way that they are to the plot. I think that was really, really like magnificent. So
Yeah, for plot and characters, I definitely got to go with John as well because I just think he gave a lot of insight, especially with the background surrounding the movie, with the rights issues and the studio interference, and how that kind of went against the film, but like the film rose up against those obstacles and became this really amazing campy film that we all know and love today.
All right. PJ, I'm sorry, but I also have to
Clean
go with
sweep,
John.
baby.
I'm sorry because the way that he explained the stereotypes too, and he did state several times that it was like just character driven, and both films are, but the way that he explained it, he really got me. So
Oof.
So
Okay.
obviously, first round goes to John. So we're gonna go into acting. I want to say with that, I definitely think PJ won that one because the way he was able to show the relationship between everyone and even include the entire cult and the impact that they have with everyone in the movie and individual characters, I think that that was really great. Like you really did well. But John, you did great as well. Don't feel discouraged.
No, that's why I think PJ won that one anyway. So keep going.
I'm gonna say it because PJ, I think you won that one too because I like how you included how the whole village itself is a character. That was really interesting.
Would it help you if I said the cabin's also a character?
But no, also I agree that everyone had great chemistry acting, even though it was such a dark film. That everyone fed well off of each other acting wise. So that one goes to PJ.
I also agree with both Cam and Rema when it comes to how PJ explained the acting. Most importantly for me was how he explained how the actors portrayed that sense of grief which runs through the whole film. So I think the way he explained how the film just wouldn't work without these actors on their A game was very, very good. But also, John, you did great.
Yeah, John.
Bruce Campbell will always have a special place in all of our hearts.
Yes.
Daddy
Amen.
Campbell.
Amen.
Florence Pugh had to just edge this one out.
Yeah, sorry, John. You can
That's
respect
fine.
Florence.
Okay, so
The
when it
whammon.
comes to technical, I'm gonna give it to PJ on this one.
Ooh.
Ooh, hot take. I know that's a hot take. I think when he really defended just the fact that it was, different type of horror than the whole, he really brought in, highlighted what the shrooms whole
Yeah.
Legally
that
speaking.
Legally speaking.
Legally, I have not done it, but I know that that is very true.
From Friends.
Based on documentaries that you've seen, right?
From documentaries.
The new Netflix documentary.
Yeah,
The
Yep.
yeah.
psychedelic
yeah.
whatever thing.
Um,
Oh, have a groovy trip.
You did really, really, really great job with the technical stuff. Like you really went off on PJ. Like you really did not hesitate. So you guys, yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with John because the more practical effects, those always really do it for me. But the fact that PJ brought up how the hallucination scenes are so real, it was great how that was done. But I always have to go with the practical effects, and I thought John argued that really well.
Okay.
man, y'all are really making me a tiebreaker here.
I heard you sigh.
Yeah. So I don't like being in this position, but I really got to go with John here. For pretty much every reason that Cam said, where practical effects just do it for me, and the way John explained how integral they are to the film experience of watching Evil Dead 2 and how much it benefits from having those practical effects, just really sold it for me. PJ, shrooms are great in films. Like
I said more than just shrooms. There was more to my argument than the
In
shrooms.
film.
But I gotta give it to the dead old lady in the shack.
Yeah.
All right. So for the horror aspect part of it, I definitely think PJ, because I mean, Evil Dead obviously it's just such a well-known movie and has such an impact. But I think seeing things like Ari Aster's horror, I feel like it's gonna have a really big impact on the horror industry itself because it's so unique and it's just so different. Like I really agree with PJ on that, so I have to give it to him.
I'm also gonna have to go with PJ because Evil Dead 2, it has shaped horror in many ways, but I think that Midsommar is going to create more like daytime horror films, the slow burn that PJ kept quoting. A24 films, those are all, a lot of them are slow burn, and they are, they are becoming more prominent. So I definitely think stuff like Midsommar is going to take over the horror industry. So
Well, Midsommar does. In the director's cut, it has a nighttime scene. I don't know if any of you saw the
It does.
director's cut.
I've seen the scene.
Wait,
Okay, so very quickly, I think that John made a really good point by saying how Evil Dead 2 kind of made these cliches and how it kind of impacted horror
Yeah,
films for
that
many
too.
years to come. But also, I think
Yeah.
that the films that were releasing at the time in the late 70s, early 80s, even up down to the mid 80s, the horror films coming out were actually really good. Like they were getting awards
Yeah.
recognition.
It was peak horror 80s.
Yeah.
100%.
But like
True.
when you look at it now in 2020 or in 2019 when Midsommar came out, horror films are pretty bad. Like you got films like
Mhm.
Fantasy Island coming out, like what PJ said, these Blumhouse movies which are just not good. I think Midsommar has the greatest effect because it's a diamond in the rough, really, when it comes to the impact that these horror films are having on the industry as a whole.
Okay, so
Yeah.
finally, Impact. You know what? I'm gonna have to give it to John. He really went all out with talking about how much of an impact it already has been. And when he continued talking about how it's always going to have that impact with horror movies. Because, like, obviously, a hot take, I don't know, Midsummer, like, there has to be aspects that obviously, like, all horror movies obviously have aspects that relate to each other.
Yeah, they all feed off of each other somehow.
Yeah, like The
I
Wicker
feel-
Man is a perfect
I
example.
feel like John really won that case because, it's always it's like the start, it's the peak of it. So it really is what you can only go greater with Evil Dead and all the movies that come after it.
Yeah, I also have to go with John because it really did start everything off. But who knows, maybe in the future, Midsummer will start something totally new also. But John was very passionate about it and he got me. And yeah, it's just Evil Dead. So
Okay, so for impact, I said this before, I'm just gonna reiterate. I have to go with PG on this one. It's because, as I said before, with horror films being really bad nowadays, just seeing a film like Midsommar come out, which is not only a really good horror film, but a really good character film, it's very refreshing. And I love Evil Dead 2. I think it's a superior film personally, but just when you compare it to the other films coming out at the time, it was just like top tier amongst the top tier. So that's why I think the impact from Midsommar was more.
Because it's out of the blue.
Listen,
All right,
Yeah.
that means John won.
That means
the
Evil
first-
Dead 2 is the winner of the first
Yeah,
episode of
baby.
Ticket
Wow.
Snubs.
It was a good
Can we
arc
say,
Really good.
can we
discussion.
say
All
what
right, now shake hands, say
Okay,
good game.
So I just want to say I didn't really like no, whoa, I love Midsommar.
Whoa.
No, I
Midsommar
would.
was literally my favorite one. Evil Dead 2, have a lot of respect for it. Just wasn't a movie for me. Have a lot of respect
you.
for it. Just wasn't for me.
I
Cam?
would only watch Evil Dead 2 again if there was a gun to my head.
Oh my god.
Wow.
I would never
that
willingly watch that
bad?
movie again.
That bad?
It wasn't that
I
bad.
love-
It was just like it was just
honestly, I kind of just didn't find any like it just didn't impact me. Like I wasn't afraid.
Yeah.
I didn't laugh. Like I just kind of.
Oh, I love it.
That's exactly how I felt, Raymond.
I'm like
Yeah.
Peter, I watched the first movie. Like the first movie literally made me pee my pants. But like,
Oh.
just. But yeah,
Okay.
Cam, you wanna-
I love Evil Dead 2, and it is my most favorite out of the two. But Midsummer's great. I found it to be relatable in way too many possible ways. It made me kind of contemplate things, but I thought it was beautiful, Midsummer. But Evil Dead is just, it holds a very special place in my heart.
Midsommar just really messed me up in the head.
Yeah, me too. A little too much.
PJ and I just kept saying not to watch it because it's gonna remind me of too much from the past. But
Yeah.
You put
A
someone in a
little
bear
too
costume
much.
and burnt them?
exactly. How did you know?
Yeah, that's
Jeez.
a little too
Story
much.
of my life. No, I mean I said this before. Yeah, I do prefer Evil Dead 2 out of if I had to compare it to Midsommar, but they're both very different films. And it's just part of the fun of like comparing them like this. It's just two very different films.
I
Yeah.
really, I guess I
If-
did not know who
if
any
I
of
had
you
to.
were.
Yeah, Evil
Okay.
Dead 2.
Okay, so I guess that's the end of the first.
That's the end.
Wait,
of
I have a question though. Are we going to do a movie recommendation for us to watch and discuss? Okay.
Wait, let me just start off with the fact that the next debate is gonna be between Camry and I.
Oh shoot, what is it?
Ladybird versus mid 90s.
Oh, God.
That is an
That's a good
interesting
one.
one.
That's
I am
gonna be good.
excited for
That's a
that.
good one.
I know. My mind
Dude.
works in ways. Obviously gonna be highlighting the fact of coming of age and the
Yeah.
impact of your
Mhm.
environment on the way that you develop through your adolescence. So
Yeah.
John,
I-
come on, give us that movie recommendation.
Yeah.
First one we're gonna start off with. And if you guys have already seen it, just rewatch it, just so you get it in your head, and then we can talk about it. I'm gonna recommend A Ghost Story as my first
Oh!
Story.
All right, I've been
So
wanting an
we
excuse
can
to
talk
watch
about
that.
A Ghost Story
Okay.
next week. I did just rewatch it yesterday, so I am fresh in my opinion. I will gladly rewatch it again for next week's discussion. So,
Oh yeah, I know that movie, but I have not seen it.
Neither have
it's
I. So.
fantastic.
I have not. I am
Sorry,
very
I didn't mean
excited to watch it.
spoil that.
Okay.
But yeah, check it out.
At the end of episode 1.
All right. Yep.
I believe so.
That's
All
the
right.
end.
That was fun.
And to quote
That's
Abraham
all.
Lincoln
Oh my
Slavery
god.
at the end of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. We'll see you next time on Ticket
Bye-bye,
Stubs.
bye-bye,
And
bye.
slavery is bad.
Bye.
And slavery is bad.